Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a true developer horror story. How a startup's awesome new AI feature ended up with a shocking bill. And, more importantly, how you can avoid that exact same fate. Let's dive in.
Okay, just imagine for a second. You open your cloud bill and you see this number staring back at you. $47,000. And that's not for a year, not even for a quarter. That's for one single month. And this wasn't some hypothetical. This was the cold, hard reality for a startup that went all in on GPT-4 for their new chatbot. And get this, they only had 1,000 users. Without any cost optimization, their burn rate just went through the roof, and the bill ultimately forced them to shut down. So the big question is, how on earth does a bill get this high, this fast? And what simple, strategic changes could have saved them? We're going to dig into the math, and then we'll explore the solution that could have saved them and, can save you an absolute fortune.
All right, first things first, let's break down how these costs just absolutely exploded. The core mistake really was sending every single user query, no matter how simple, to the most powerful and, the most expensive model out there.
Just look at the difference here. The mistake was treating every question the same, sending all of them to GPT-4. That cost them almost $2,000 a day. Now the fix? Route the easy stuff, which is usually about 80% of queries, to a much smaller self-hosted model like Llama 2.7b. That one move absolutely crushes the daily cost by over 75%. So the solution here isn't just about flipping a switch to a different model. It's about being smarter, about having a hybrid strategy. It's really just good engineering 101. Use the right tool for the right job. 86%. Let that sink in for a second. By simply routing most of that traffic to a smaller model and then adding a simple cache for common questions, this startup could have slashed their bill by a staggering 86%.
And look at what that does to the bottom line. You go from a heart-stopping $47,000 a month down to a much more manageable $6,500. I mean, that's not just a small tweak. That is literally the difference between going out of business and building something that can actually last.
Okay, so what are these models we're even talking about? Well, at the heart of all this are what we call large language models, or LLMs for short. You can think of them as these giant digital brains trained on just an insane amount of text, which lets them understand and talk kind of like a person. And this right here is the real game changer. Older systems were basically just fancy dictionaries. They matched keywords. That's it. But LLMs, they're more like having a language expert on call. They get the context, the nuance, what you actually mean. They don't just find answers, they create them.
All right, so this is where it gets really good for us developers. Let's talk about the platform that makes this whole hybrid strategy not just possible, but actually pretty easy to pull off. Hugging Face.
Honestly, the best way to think about Hugging Face is like an app store, but for AI. It's this massive hub with like over 350,000 pre-trained models. So you don't have to spend millions training one from scratch. You can just go grab one that fits your needs. And the real magic of the Hugging Face library is just how simple it is. I'm talking a few lines of Python and boom, you've got super sophisticated AI doing things like sentiment analysis or question answering right inside your app. It makes this powerful tech accessible to basically everyone. Okay, but what happens when an off-the-shelf model doesn't know anything about your specific company, your products, or your industry's weird jargon? This is where generic models can really fall flat.
This slide is the perfect example of why that matters. A generic model may be one trained on movie reviews, sees hypertension, and thinks, that sounds bad, so negative sentiment, which is totally wrong. But a model that's been fine-tuned on medical data, it knows exactly what that means and correctly flags it as an urgent medical case. That's a massive jump in accuracy and, actual usefulness.
Now, there's another big issue with LLMs. Sometimes they just make stuff up. We have a term for it, hallucinating. To stop that from happening, we use this really clever technique called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. The easiest way to think about RAG is like giving the AI an open book exam. Before it answers a question, the system first goes and looks up the relevant info in your documents, your single source of truth. This forces the model to base its answer on actual facts you've provided, not on whatever it might have rattling around in its memory. No more making things up.
Okay, let's bring it all home. We're going to cover two last techniques that are absolutely crucial if you want to run these models in the real world efficiently and, affordably. First up is something called model quantization. It sounds complex, but the idea is pretty simple. You shrink the model by reducing the precision of its numbers. And look at this. You can take a huge 28 gigabyte model and shrink it all the way down to just 3.5 gigs. A smaller model means less memory, which means you can run it on much cheaper GPUs, which could slash your server costs by up to 88%. It's a huge deal.
And finally, this one is just a total no-brainer, caching. Seriously, if 1,000 users ask the same question like, what are your business hours? You do not want to pay the LLM to generate that answer 1,000 separate times. You have it generate the answer once, you store it, and then you just serve that stored response. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's a win-win.
So, let's just quickly recap the key takeaways here. 1. Route your queries smartly. 2. Ground your model in reality with your own data using RAG. 3. Specialize it for your needs with fine-tuning. And 4. Shrink it with quantization and cache absolutely everything you can.
Ultimately, building with AI isn't just about grabbing the biggest, most powerful model you can find. The difference between that massive, business-killing bill and an efficient, intelligent application, it all comes down to making these smart, strategic architectural choices right from day one.